The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani, and that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, JournetRadio.com, where we keep you inspired and informed, and don't forget about RibRub.com. They like to say bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah. You can catch me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And while you're out there, regardless of what platform it is, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And not only that, when sharing, go and tell somebody else, hey, you need to go out and check out Black Focus Radio. He's got a lot of good stuff going on as well. I also want you to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It's the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address ourselves and our brothers and sisters. And using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I like to say? If you've been listening, you're going to hear, join with me. Just don't say it. Okay? Just don't say it. Don't even mention it. All right? Wow. Oh, by the way, want to remind people that my book is out, The Pain of Vengeance. Make sure you go out to Amazon. You can get it on 4 different platforms, so you don't have any excuse. I want to hear that. Go out and get it on, you can get it on paperback, you can get it in hardback, you can get it in audiobook, and you can get it as an ebook. So, a Kindle download, that's what the ebook is. Just download it from Kindle. Or, like I said, if you like to travel and you're going to take a flight. Let's say you're here on the East Coast and you're flying to the West Coast. That's going to be a 6-7 hour flight. Get that audiobook. It'll take you all the way there. Okay? Get it. I had a friend who took a train ride a couple of days ago and said it was a 7-hour train ride. And he listened to the book all the way back. Okay. So make sure you go out and check it out. The other book you need to check out coming up in September, it is Blue Chip Down. We're excited about that. It's the story of a black male, black superstar athlete who decides to not take his scholarship. Certainly appropriate for what's going on today. You go out to the Facebook page. There are all kinds of ads that I've put together so you can see exactly what it's all about. Also, let's see what else. Oh, Grants and Federal Assistance Made Easy. It is an ebook, and it is also now a book on Amazon as well. So you can either grow the book. It's more like a pamphlet. It's 60 pages of good information on how you should be pursuing and writing grants. So I think you'll enjoy those as well. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, you can get an autographed copy of The Pain of Vengeance, and once Blue Chip Down comes out, if you buy direct from me. I've told you over and over again, Amazon is eating me alive as it relates to commissions, and it's just not me, it's everybody else who is advertising on Amazon. But I mean, it makes it, Amazon is okay, but the problem is, because it does a lot of things for you. Let's be realistic. It sets your book up so you can print on demand. So I can order 1 book or I can order 10 books. So that's cost effective for me. But like I said, and then of course it hosted on its own site. So that hurts as well. But at the end of the day, it is a very, very good way. But again, the commissions are just terrible. They really are. They're eating authors alive. So I'm asking people to purchase the book direct from me. That will help me defray some of my cost and allow me to bypass some of the some of the high commissions that I'm having to pay. Okay, so enough about me. Let's go ahead and jump into Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Okay, today's Black Fact is going to be about the Black church. And what you all may not know is that there were plenty of black churches that were participating in the slave trade. Did y'all know that? Y'all may not have known that. And so when you hear this Christian nationalism, as a matter of fact, there was a preacher last week who was saying, from Arizona, who was saying that he believed that black people need to be under white rule. Okay. So here's what they didn't tell us about the black church. They told you the church preached about love. They didn't tell you that some of the pastors, priests, bishops, and ministers personally owned slaves. Did y'all know that? Here are just a few examples. The Jesuit order, Roman Catholic Church, owned hundreds of enslaved Africans on plantations in Maryland in 1838. The order sold 272 enslaved men, women, and children to Louisiana plantations to help pay debts and support Georgetown, now known as Georgetown University. If you've been following the news over the last few years, you should know that, because Georgetown has admitted that they owned slaves at the time. In fact, the Jesuits owned slaves at the time. Some Episcopal or Anglican churches own enslaved people who worked church on land and helped generate income for the church. Some Methodist and Presbyterian congregations, particularly in the South, owned enslaved people and benefited directly from their enslaved labor. The Southern Baptist Convention, founded in 1845 after a dispute over slavery, while the national denomination did not legally own enslaved people as one organization, many of its churches, ministers, and members did. The Southern Baptists insisted that slaveholders should be eligible to serve as missionaries. Hello. By the way, the Southern Baptists, if you are a black Baptist church and you're involved in the Southern Baptist Convention, you are a damn fool. It kind of tells you. And here's what they did. And I have a good friend, by the way, Reverend Clarence Thornton, who is the owner of Journette Radio, told me this is what they basically did. They went to black churches, black Baptist churches, and they basically blackmailed them. Well, I should say paid them off. If you join our denomination, then we'll ensure that you get this amount of money and this amount of money and this amount of money. So a lot of black churches that were Baptists joined that convention only to realize that in their bylaws that it was steeped with different types of racism. Okay, a few years ago, there were some black Baptist churches who moved away from the Southern Baptist Convention because they asked to simply put up a resolution against discrimination, and the Southern Baptists refused to do so. So just thought I'd throw that out there. More so, some religious leaders defended slavery by pointing to certain parts of the Bible. At the same time, many other Christians, including Quakers, abolitionist ministers, and countless black churches, risked everything to fight against slavery. Both parts of history are true. This is an attack on Christianity. It isn't an attack on the people of faith. It's a reminder that no institution is above history. If we are going to teach the truth, we have to teach all of it, not just the parts that make us feel comfortable. That's what white people are going through right now. That's why they're upset right now, because the truth is coming back to haunt them, and it's hurting them, you see. But it's your truth. It's definitely your truth. I'm trying to get organized here. All right. So history doesn't become false just because it makes us uncomfortable. The truth is still the truth. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Where am I scrolling? All right, so a couple other things we want to add to this black fact is I mentioned earlier of the black preacher who was trying to use excuses to recolonize black people. You see, what I've been telling you all for a long time is that this is more than just about immigrants stealing their jobs. It's about these people want black men and black people under their rule. All right. So let me read this. Every generation of whiteness eventually convinces itself that black people need to be ruled, managed, civilized, and rescued. This is colonization and what they call Christian civilization. It's basically control and confiscation of minerals. Africa doesn't need European control to become moral, but the narrative was pushed in the South. My black father told me we were cursed due to Ham. The Schofield Bible made sure we were taught that. My question is, why do some white people still believe black freedom works best under white authority? That's a good question, don't you think? In fact, that's an excellent question. That kind of reminds me of Dale Partridge. Dale Partridge, okay? Because Dale Partridge is that white preacher in Arizona. And he preaches against interracial marrying. You know, going back in the day, they didn't want black women. Well, here's the weird thing about it. They wanted to have sex with black women and black girls. Let's make sure we include that. They wanted to have sex with them, but they didn't want to marry them. And they certainly didn't want their white girls having sex with black men, because they felt like that it would cause more problems. You know, because, if you have one drop of black blood, you black. Although there were many who passed. There are great stories in our history where black women whose parents or mother had been assaulted by a white man, but they grew up looking white. And some of them got into colleges and so on and so forth. So that's interesting. But the reason, and by the way, that guy Dale Partridge, who was against interracial marriages, did you know that he was married to a Mexican woman? Hey, hello. You can't make these things up. All right. Here's some more about Dale Partridge. Let's see. He used Genesis to argue and race to argue that Africa's struggles are tied to the so-called curse of Ham, and that European Christian colonization is the answer. In The Message, Partridge made sweeping claims about Africans, including statements about intelligence. Are we still doing this? Wait a minute. Are y'all still questioning the Africans' intelligence? Everything you have today came from Africa. All the knowledge that you have today came from Africa. Even if we go back into the United States history, we realize that many of the things that you live by today was created by black people. You see, you can't see my lighting, but these lights and the cell phone that I have, it just goes back and back. Blood transfusion, open heart surgery. Oh, it just goes further and further back. But y'all still doing that. Boy, wow, that's just crazy. Intelligence, athleticism, and civilization dependence, while presenting colonization as the source of order and progress. Okay. For many Christians, this controversy is serious not only because of the historical claims made, but because the biblical language is being used to support a racial hierarchy and justify ideas long associated with oppression. Critics argue that Scripture does not support treating entire people groups as inherently inferior or designed for subordination, and that invoking the gospel to defend such views distorts the true character of Christ and message of human dignity. Now, I will tell you there were a couple of preachers that came out last week, both white, who basically and unequivocally stated that white Christianity has never been legitimate. I always tell you all that, in my opinion, white Christians are an oxymoron. They have a history of lying and doing evil things to black people. So this is not a surprise. But to see that preacher come out last week and say, hey, what y'all are talking about is wrong. What you all have done to people of color is wrong. And we need more people. That he reminds me of John Brown at Harper's Ferry. Now, a lot of you all don't know that John Brown was a white man, white Quaker, as a matter of fact, who led the revolt on Harper's Ferry, ultimately killed. But the point I guess I want to make to you, more than anything else, and again, this is not an attack on your religion. This is an attack on Christian nationalism, because Christian nationalism is nothing more than a cult. White people still are running around saying that our founding fathers based the Constitution on the Bible. Well, no, they didn't. History tells us that. But see, if you don't go back and read history, then you won't understand that. The same thing applies to this curse of Ham. That's a lie too. You know, there were three. If you believe the Bible, there are three paths of humanity: Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Ham allegedly was the father of black people. Shem was the father of Arab people, and Japheth was allegedly the father of white people. Now, genealogists would tell us that's not real, but again, we're thinking on a Bible translation. And of course, they think that the people of Ham were cursed. That's a lie. I really should have gotten, if you want to read an interesting book that will explain all of this to you, it's called The Valley of the Dry Bones by Rudolph Windsor. I have the book, but I don't handle the book because I bought it something like 30 years ago, and it's basically the papers are falling out because I've read it so much. But all I'm going to say to you all is, if you are in one of these religions, regardless of its denomination, all I want you to do is do more research. Okay? Do research about the Bible. Don't be afraid to see or read or even understand what is really being said, because that's really the problem. And if there's any white person out there suggesting that their religion is above all other religions, that's a Christian nationalist. And I would advise you to steer clear of that person as much as you can. Okay? I'm just saying. I would advise you to do that. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
I hope you enjoyed that Black Fact. I thought it was important that we discuss those things because, and I left it open for you because I just want you to go and read for yourself. Okay? Don't take my word for it. I'm by no means a theologian or anything like that. I just simply went and read history. I went and decided that during the time of my life, do I want to be Christian? Do I want to be Muslim? Do I want to be Buddhist? Do I want to be agnostic? In my research, there was a lot of stuff revealed by multiple religions, deaths and destruction at the behest of their gods. And that's a dangerous, dangerous place to be in, as far as I'm concerned. When you're killing other people and forcing them into a religion, as Muhammad did a lot of, even now, these Christian nationalists are trying to force their will on us. You know, you in Texas, they are making kids read the 10 Commandments when those in Texas don't even follow the 10 Commandments. Come on now. You got to be careful of people who want to teach your child about the Bible, yet they don't want to even act out what's in the Bible. Last point, and I'm going to go to break. The problem I have with this, during the civil rights struggles, during the Jim Crow, even when we became desegregated per se, there were white people who were talking about Jesus and reading parts of the Bible in classes. Yet these were the same bigots and racists. Think about that. Whatever you think you know, here's what I know. That Jesus helped the sick. Now, I'm not a Christian and I'm not trying to preach to you, but I'm talking about your Bible. Jesus helped the sick. Okay? He fed the poor. He despised rich people. Okay? That scripture, and I'm paraphrasing, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to gain the gates of heaven. And on that note, I'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, on joynetradio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how we get in touch with you, with me. Send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This segment I'm going to talk, and this may extend into the next hour, depending on how much I get through this. But I want to talk about black deaths. Certainly, over the last week, we've been paying attention to what happened to Nolan Xavier Wales. Been paying a lot of attention to that, and rightfully so. We're going to get into that here in just a moment. But there were a couple of other things that have occurred as of late that we need to be concerned about. Of course, you all heard about the Carmelo Anthony situation where he was being bullied and ended up stabbing one of the bullies, and he's been sentenced to 35 years in jail for defending himself. Anthony, a black boy, the bullies were white. In fact, two of them were twins who had a history of bullying people. Okay? So, the point is this justice the same? I don't know that it is or it isn't. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Because I got to be honest, I don't think this justice system was designed for black males or black people in general. We know it wasn't. We see that there are more black people arrested and convicted of crimes that didn't commit the crimes. They were later exonerated. We know that black people receive higher sentences in similar cases that white people commit. Okay? We know that. So we know that this justice system isn't blind. The Carmelo Anthony case really exacerbated that even more, considering the fact that they say you're supposed to be judged by your peers. So why weren't there black jurors on that jury panel? I'm just asking. You can't tell me that my peers, if I grow up in a certain area that are predominantly black, and I have to go to trial and have a jury trial, you're telling me that all white people are my peers? No, they're not. So I want to highlight a couple of other cases, and then we're going to get in this Carmelo, not the Carmelo Anthony, but the Wales case. A 19-year-old has been taken to jail accused of throwing out items and deleting messages in the wake of a teen's drowning at Lake Ray Hubbard in April of 2026. That first graph of that story, and this is from CBS News. The first graph of this story is important as we head back to the Wales case. Okay? Jail records obtained by CBS News in Texas confirmed that the Dallas Police Department arrested Lucas Roper on July 9th. He's charged with tampering with evidence tied to the death of 18-year-old Daniel Irving. Roper was granted a $10,000 bond. An affidavit for Roper's arrest claims he, Irvin, and a 17-year-old boy jumped into a lake from a bridge on April 13th near Miller Road. However, Irving drowned. His body was recovered later on April 17th. The affidavit claims that Roper and the 17-year-old threw Irving's clothes into a tree line near the bridge above the water before driving away in Roper's vehicle. It also claims the pair threw Irving's cell phone out. According to the affidavit, Irving's phone and clothes were recovered as the investigation got underway. A review of the phone showed text messages and phone calls shared by Roper and Irving from the day they went to the lake. A search of Roper's phone, per the affidavit, revealed Roper deleted all communications between him and Irving. Roper repeatedly admitted he was afraid of getting into trouble. So why, this kid is Lucas Roper. Why did you delete his text? If he drowned the way you say he did, and I don't know how deep this lake is in Texas, but apparently this is when you hear about little things like this, apparently kids have been doing this for years. And you say he drowned. Well, I will tell you that Irving, the young man who was killed, I don't think he would have jumped off a bridge into a lake if he couldn't swim. Number one. And it sounds like to me that he took his clothes off and was in his swim trunks. It doesn't say that in this story, but I can kind of surmise you went to this area, you didn't want to get your shoes and clothes wet, you took them off, you walk to the bridge, you jump off. So this guy apparently could swim. Okay? This guy could apparently swim. All right. Dallas police in an affidavit reported they interviewed Roper at the high school on April 20th. The affidavit shows Roper admitted to driving off and ordering the 17-year-old to toss Irving's phone. The 17-year-old, in his own interviews with police, also reportedly told investigators Roper himself threw out the clothes. Police noted that the Rowlett Police Department handled the initial missing persons report for Irving, but the DPD was handling the death investigation. So there's another one. There's another story. I got another. Well, let me just read this real fast. Along with Irving's family, along with the community advocacy group, they've demanded answers from the Dallas Police Department. Okay, the Rowlett Police Department was slammed, claiming department failed to act swiftly in a statement shared in late April. This case represents a complete breakdown in urgency, accountability, and equal justice. A young black student goes missing, and instead of immediate action, the family is met with delay and dismissal. Then we learned that individuals were present when he died, failed to call for help, failed to report it, and are still not in custody. Very interesting, isn't it? This is from the Detroit Free Press. An Illinois man who attended the Electric Forest Festival in Rothbury, Michigan, and was missing Monday, June 29th, has been found dead. Gerard Jackson, 28, was last seen about 10 a.m. Monday after leaving the Electric Forest Festival. Jackson's body was found by officers in a wooded area near Rothbury, where his rental vehicle was parked. Police said there was no indication of foul play and that the man may have taken his own life. Huh? The incident was the second reported at this festival, which took place June 25th through the 28th. Earlier, police reported finding a dead newborn infant at the festival. I guess the newborn took his life too. That's possible. Troopers previously responded to Jackson's campsite on Monday after he reported a criminal incident involving a friend. Officers conducted an investigation and determined that there was no evidence that an incident had occurred at the festival. Jackson left the venue shortly afterwards, leaving his phone as well. So, that's really interesting. So these are two black males, and we've heard there was a hanging a while back at Delta, was it Delta State or near Delta State, black male. There was another missing person, a young black female. She was found hanged. And all they're doing is saying suicide, suicide, suicide. Interesting. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but here's what I do know. And that particular article stated that, or the article before that stated, that black lives don't matter to white police officers. And the reason that's the case is because when black people go to the police and report something nefarious as it relates to their children, it's ignored. And even initially when the information comes out, that information is not even paid attention to, unfortunately. It's not even paid attention to until there's evidence that comes back and says, oh, look what we found. And then they want to go out and try to do an investigation, which is half-hearted at best, number one. And then more importantly, they don't really care. But anytime a white kid gets killed under nefarious circumstances as it relates to being with black people, and you rarely even hear that happen. I can't even think about a case that a white kid went and hung out with black kids and the white boy came up missing. And the black kids were accused. I don't know. I'm sorry, I went blank there for a moment because the other case that really popped in my head was about the white woman who went to an overnight sleep out. And she ends up falling off the balcony. She was the only black woman there, and she falls off the balcony with all, and I think there were 7 or 8 different white women. Allegedly, it happened in the middle of the night. She was drunk, and they're saying that that's what caused that, and there was no further investigation. I'm just, this is really beginning to get on my nerves. Remember Sonia Massey, who was having a mental breakdown and ended up getting shot in the head? And you know, and I think about this case. When I was in Memphis, there was a case where this man who was killed by police. And you say, well, police had nothing to do with those disappearances. I agree, but my point I'm trying to make here is that it's pretty clear that when it comes to black lives, police don't give a damn about you. Okay? When I lived in Memphis, when I first moved to Memphis years ago, there was a housing development called Lemoyne Owen. And in that housing development, a mother called the police on her son. And she called the police telling them that she needed some help. Her son had been in a mental institution, or he had been diagnosed with mental incapacities. And he was home, and for whatever reasons, he got a knife and started stabbing himself. Self-inflicted. The mother panicked and then called the police. The police show up, and they end up shooting this man 11 times, killing him. And they argue, oh, he had a knife. He had a knife. You see, I got a problem with police shooting people for a knife. Because at the end of the day, if that person's not charging you, if he's not heading towards you, you've got plenty of time to get out of the way of a knife. And if it's a group of you all, are you telling me you couldn't have subdued this man who had a knife? You couldn't have tased him. You couldn't have used pepper spray. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's pretty clear that black lives don't matter to the white establishment. It's pretty clear. This is not even a debate. History tells us this. It tells us way back when this country was first formed that black lives didn't matter to the white establishment. Even in their burial, we find that there are organizations and corporations that are building on top of black cemeteries. You understand that that's a way to erase your history. So when I hear these cases, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Wells case here in a moment. When I hear these cases, I'm not surprised. I'm sorry, but I got so many of these cases going through my head. I'm thinking about this case where the young girl went missing and the police didn't believe she was missing, and it was the family who came together and found her in some type of forest where they ultimately ended up tracking her cell phone. I mean, there are so many cases of missing black and exploited women, and they don't do much of anything to try to find, oh, they'll come back, maybe they just ran away. But if it's a white person, think about all of the resources that they spend to try to find this person. I'm just saying. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this Wells case, because it's disturbing. It really is. And I tell you what, before I do that, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna set it up by telling you a couple of experiences I had growing up in predominantly white spaces. Because I'm saying that, I guess I'm saying because of my experiences, I'm not surprised. Back in a moment. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on JoynetRadio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations, available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. I will tell you that I set up my script every show, and I usually don't get to a lot of the stuff because I get into some other things that I like to expound upon. Today may be that one of those situations, but we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. But I want to talk a little bit about missing bodies, and those are black bodies. But before I do that, let me set something up for you, because the next segment we're probably going to get into the the Wells case, Xavier Wells case, a lot. Okay. So for me, I'm usually pretty open about things. And when I was growing up, one of the things that my mom always said to me was, you live in a white world. You need to be able to understand and matriculate within that world. And to some extent, I will be honest with you, that mentality has helped me a lot. Okay? So here's the deal though. When I was growing up, I knew what she was saying. I just didn't like how it was being applied to me. And what I mean by that is a lot of times I was the only black person in white spaces. Give you an example. There was a camp, and I've talked about this before, there was a day camp that I went to during the summertime called Camp Grundy. And that camp was, well, at the time I didn't know it was for white folks. But we went to this camp every day. We had to, let's say we would be at the YMCA downtown on Main at 7 a.m. in the mornings. Well, the bus left at 7 a.m., so we had to be there about 6:30. My mom would drop me off. And in some cases, she couldn't take me all the way because she was going to work, so she dropped me off, and I would have to walk the rest of the way. And we would leave the YMCA and drive down Highway 10 to Camp Grundy. In fact, while I was living in Little Rock, that camp is no longer in existence, but I drove by it a lot in those areas. I was the only black person in that camp, and I went to that camp for 3 straight years, if I remember correctly. 3 straight years. I think I started like at 8 or 9, and I don't know, maybe it was 2 years. Now, one of the things that we used to do also during the summertime was do swimming lessons. The American Red Cross War Memorial Pool had one of the best pools in the area. It definitely had the best pool in the state. It had a 1 meter, a 3 meter, a 5 meter, and an 8 meter diving board. And believe it or not, we used to jump off the 8 meters. Okay? We really did. So the weird thing about it is that every summer I would take swimming lessons. And they would start you off as an amateur, or I forgot, you would get patches. And you would sew the patch on your swimwear. And that patch determined what level you were. So each year, once you passed a certain test, you would get a new patch for the next year, and the next year, and the next year. I say all that because, see, these white folks didn't know I could swim. So we go out to Camp Grundy, and immediately, and I will tell you, I can't remember the guy's name. I just remember his last name. It was Teeter. His folks owned some used car lots in Little Rock. A lot of people say they had those were the worst cars. It was Teeter. I can't remember his last name. And he would be the main bully. Of course, the guy whose parents have the best money or make the best money is the guy who's the bully. Okay? He tried to bully me and got punched in the nose. All right? And there were a couple of guys who he bullied who then, after they saw that I punched their friend in the nose, or the bully in the nose, they wanted to be my friend. So throughout this whole encounter of Camp Grundy, I was the only black person for 3 years. They always wanted me on my team because I could run the fastest, I could swim, and I could outrow all of them. You know, we had rowboats. It had a lake. It was a great camp. And we ultimately ended up, some of them, becoming friends. When we'd come back, we would always come back, let's say, around 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. And from 2 to, well, maybe it was 3 o'clock, from 3 to 4, we could then swim in the YMCA's pool. And we would play this game called All Fishes Under. And that's where you had to go down to the bottom of the pool and swim across all the way underwater without taking a breath. And it started with one person on one side, and then it was probably 10 or 15 other people on the other side, those who could swim now. And that one person, it was kind of like water when playing it in the water. Okay? So You had to swim to someone and push his head out of the water. And then he became on your side. And then it whittled down to eventually one person against all those other people. And you had to swim past them. If that one person swam past and got to the other side, he was the winner. Okay? They quickly realized that I played all fishes under very, very well. And there was one time where this guy grabbed onto me and tried to keep my head underwater, and I flipped him upside down and almost drowned him. I'm being totally honest. I was a little kid, but at that time I knew this was one of those so-called racist guys. So you say, why am I telling you this? Again, this is about black faces in white places where you have to be careful. And remember, my mom told me she was sending me to this camp because I needed to know how to become friends with white people. Okay? Another instance where I went on a voluntary basis was the Philmont Scout Ranch. I've told you all often that I was a Boy Scout, a proud Boy Scout. I got all the way up to, is it Star? Whatever the level is behind Eagle Scout. But we had the largest Boy Scout troop in the state of Arkansas. It was a black troop. We had the largest one. We would take kids out to camping, down to Camp Quapaw, all kinds of things. There was another racist incident down there. If I get time in this segment, I'll talk about that. But the ultimate scouting adventure for any scout is going to Philmont Scout Ranch. It is in Cimarron, New Mexico. And what they do is you go into base camp and they feed you the night before, and then they take you to by vehicle, whether it's a bus or a truck or whatever the case may be. You have backpacks, you have sleeping bags, all of these things that you need to live in the wilderness for 2 weeks. And you had to basically hike back to the base camp, eating fish out of the streams. And one of the best things I ever did was learn how to tie flies back then. And you would go to these different camps and they were teaching you stuff about survival techniques, tying flies, how to avoid wildlife and things of that nature. Because look, we were in the wilderness. A friend of mine, Jeffrey Hampton, who is now, I believe, a bishop. I don't know if he's still in Little Rock. I hadn't talked to him in years. It was he and I, the only two black people that were there. We had another black counselor, but it was just 3 of us. But the counselor was an adult, right? And we ended up being left alone with the group of white boys, me and Jeff. The black counselor went on an excursion because we had to show you how deep this was, is that when you were running low on food, you had to look at your map and see where the nearest filling station, I think that's what we called them back then, was, to go and get supplies, because we had a lot of freeze-dried food as well. We'd go get supplies. So oftentimes during the trip, 3 or 4 of the people that were in the group would leave and go to get extra supplies, and then they would meet us either back at the camp or they would meet us down the trail somewhere. So all of the counselors left that day, and we were left with just Jeff, myself, and about 10 to 12 white boys. I'm going to call them out. Those of you who knew these people, Homer and Hardy Cherry. I'm calling their names, yes. Because once a racist, always a racist. And I don't doubt that they were racist. And I've told you all this story before, but I think it's important when we talk about black faces in white places. So while they were gone, I don't really know what started all of this. We were standing around the campfire, and all of a sudden we began to get harassed by these white boys. Okay? And they continually harassed us to the point where I became a little annoyed. I wasn't scared. And so they started talking about, oh, we're going to whoop your ass and da-da-da-da-da. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I just so happened to have a stick. You know, we all had walking sticks. But I had this particular stick, and I pounded a nail in it and stuck it in the fire to the point where you could see that nail was red hot. When they saw me do that, they backed off because I wasn't playing. I was 14 years old at the time. I wasn't playing. Jeff was also my age. We realized that we were probably going to have to fight. Fortunately, this incident didn't occur until later in the afternoon, and by that time, it had been long enough where the counselors had went to the depot, I think they call it the filling depot, and came back with the supplies, and they could tell that there was some tension that was going on in the camp. Asked us why, we explained what was going on, yada, 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 and that was quashed. What I'm trying to say to you, and of course there was the incident where I played on an all-white baseball team at Lamar Porter Field. I was the only guy on the team that made the All-Star team. Okay, so I've been in a lot of white spaces with my black face. A lot of times. Those two camping was the only times that I felt unsafe. So we have to be careful of what we're doing. And I know we want our kids to have experiences, but should we be concerned? And there were some others. Let's see, now as I think about it, I went to a couple of Young Life camps. You know, Young Life is a Christian organization. I went to one in North Carolina where there was only 3 black kids. I went to another one in somewhere in Colorado. I want to say Aspen. There were only 3 black kids. But in those particular camps, we didn't have any issues at all. You know. But the Boy Scout camp, and it wasn't Philmont directly. It was just those racist rednecks, Homer and Hardy Cherry, who was instigating the other guys. And they all almost ended up coming out of there in pretty bad shape because we weren't going. But I'm saying all this because as we get ready to talk a little bit about this case with Nolan Wells, sometimes we forget that white people don't really want us around. And their values has been pushed into them by their parents. This is why I say racism is a very, very bad disease that we all need to get over quickly if this country is going to survive. I'm beginning to debate more and more and more that this country is not going to survive. But we'll see. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the latest on the Nolan Wells case, because I think it's important for us to understand here. And if you remember the case that I read previous, I'm juxtaposing that case with what has happened with Nolan Wells. Okay? We'll take a break. We'll be back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Okay, welcome to the second hour of Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. I'm Dynamic Dave, or David W. Coleman. We do this every Monday. We're talking a little bit about black faces in white places. The importance of why we should create our own, to be totally honest. So, I want to talk about Nolan Xavier Wells. Nolan Xavier Wells, over the 4th of July holiday, was found dead, floating off the coast of a barrier island about 10 miles south of Mississippi. Nolan Wells went to that particular island with a group of friends. Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old kid, according to reports, very well liked. But somehow or another, he ended up dead. The story initially was he was missing. And the group of friends that he went to the island with apparently left him and claimed that they thought he was going to ride back with another group of friends. Okay, that seems feasible. Then the next morning, July 5th, Nolan Wells is found dead. Now, here's the weird thing about it. He doesn't have a cell phone. Not that it would have made a difference out there on the barrier island because they had no cell phone service. But the cell phone was in the hands of one of the friends that initially rode with Nolan to this island. Huh? Wait. Why do you have Nolan's cell phone? And by the way, why would you leave your friend? You see, I grew up, you go with and come back with who you with, if that makes sense. In other words, if you rode to the party with Johnny or J-Bell or whomever the hell it was, you come back with Johnny or J-Bell. Okay? That's the black tenant, one of the black tenants that we grew up with. So why is it that you, look, I've been places with my friends. I'll say back in the day, we've gotten a little intoxicated over time. I was always that person who didn't really drink a lot, so I was always wary of certain things and people putting things in your drink. We ran with a crew, and that crew had women in it. We always made sure that the women got home safely. We always did. Or if we were leaving, we'd go to them and say, hey, we're getting ready to go. You got a way home. Are you sure? So why would you leave your friend there? Now questions are beginning to be asked. Why did you leave Nolan, number one? And how did you get his cell phone? Peculiar, don't you think? I certainly think so. Because we know today that kids don't hardly leave their cell phones. We know that. But apparently, someone else didn't know this. So when Nolan's parents began to ask questions, they wanted this cell phone. And from what I understand, according to reports, the young man who had the cell phone didn't want to give it to him. Now, wait a minute. You tell the mother and father that their child is missing. You have his cell phone, but you don't want to give him the cell phone? That doesn't make sense to me. That's Nolan's property. You should have gladly turned that cell phone over. When they got the cell phone, apparently a lot of stuff was missing on the phone. All of his social media stuff was missing. It had been deleted. What? Who deleted it? Is the question, the first question. We also come to find that the cell phone data from his friend's phone, I think it was 3 others, their cell phone data had been deleted. Wait a minute. Isn't that odd? Did they go into the Bermuda Triangle? Is this barrier island off the coast of Mississippi part of the Bermuda Triangle, and everything stops functioning? And is that what happened? No, this is not a science fiction movie. So you have Nolan's cell phone, the victim. All of his data is deleted. Snapchat, Instagram, whatever the case may be. And you have your own personal cell phones, and all of your data is deleted. What happened here? Oh, by the way, and again, you didn't want to give that cell phone to the parents. What has happened here? So let's go back to that story that I read earlier, okay, of Lucas Roper. A 19-year-old has been taken to jail, accused of throwing out items and deleting messages in the wake of a teen's drowning. Hello? So we clearly have some peculiar things going on in Mississippi, and we used to call it Miss-a-damn-sippy. Okay? we have a black teen who was drowned, who was missing, and then ultimately found dead. And you all have his cell phone, which we still don't know why you ended up with his cell phone. And then you apparently accessed his phone and deleted all of his social media, suggesting that there is something nefarious going on here. You understand this, right? Suggesting that something's going on here. So why haven't these kids been arrested? Now, the case I just read to you is in Texas. But I'm pretty sure tampering with potential evidence is a crime. And it should be, it's from what I've understood and what I've heard other people say that is from Mississippi, it is punishable by up to 20 years in jail if you tamper with evidence. The other thing that we didn't discuss here is every one of those white teens that were near Nolan at the time has lawyered up. Now, wait a minute. Your friend is missing. You leave him on a barrier island. You then get access to his phone and delete all of his social media relating to that day. In fact, they said he had 2 different accounts and both accounts were deleted. Okay? You delete all of his social media accounts. You don't want to give the phone back to the parents. And then you immediately lawyer up. So the incident happens July 4th. By July 5th, the afternoon, every one of those young white boys had attorneys. One of them, by the way, his mother is a judge. Doesn't it make sense that you all would be trying to do anything and everything you can to make sure that prior to Nolan being found dead, that you all would find him? But instead, you lawyer up. And then you have the mother coming out with a statement claiming, oh, we all want Lucas to be found and we dearly loved Lucas and this, that, and the other. But wait a minute, you've had your kid to lawyer up. This kind of stinks to high heaven. At least it does to me and other people. Once Nolan's body was found, Colin Kaepernick is paying for an autopsy, an independent autopsy, because you can't believe any. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Mississippi has a history. You cannot believe anything as it relates to law enforcement for black people in Mississippi. You just cannot. So Colin Kaepernick is paying for the independent autopsy. Other celebrities have stepped in and purchased or donated money who's going to pay for the funeral and things of that nature. But this is very, very disturbing. The reason I took that time to tell you about black faces in white places, my personal experience, and even though that was decades ago, I was a young kid, I learned early on that you need to be careful of your surroundings when it comes to white people. I'm sorry. I learned early on. Things that you learn as a kid travels with you for the rest of your life. And I had 2 instances that were nearly back to back that I knew that I don't belong here. And if I'm going to stay here, I've got to be very, very careful. So this issue with Nolan Wells is disturbing, to say the least. There was a call where police initially said that there was a call, and he had on, and they even made a statement about what he was wearing, and come to find out that's not what he was wearing. These people were already ready to jump to conclusion about Nolan Wells. And I'm not buying, this about, he decided he was going to ride back with somebody else. The only person that we know of that is not that has not lawyered up, that is really talking to the police, is a white girl. And my question is this. I'd be curious to find out how many black kids were actually out there on this barrier island. How many? I would just be curious. And apparently, was it some type of romantic thing with this white girl? And some of the white boys got mad? There's alleged a fight or an argument that took place during that time period. We're still awaiting details on that. Now that the police and the FBI has gotten involved, now that all of that, now we're looking for more evidence of this so-called fight. Because if there was a fight, then maybe that's what occurred. Here's the other thing that could have occurred, and this is just me, I don't know, this is just conjecture. Because I know how white boys are, especially those when you're young. Let's say Nolan was on the island. I don't know this to be true. He was on the island, and they said, "Hey, Nolan, we're leaving." Nolan said, "We'll be right there." They decided to move the boat further out into the Gulf. "If you're coming, you need to swim out here. You need to swim out here." And they're on the boat laughing and giggling, and they've got their phones, and they're taking the video. Ah, Nolan, come on! Black boys can't swim. I can just hear it happening now, and other people on their boats are doing and laughing and seeing this. Nolan gets tired. He goes under. He drowns. They panic, and they leave him. And all the others that saw it, they left. Now, again, I don't know that to be the case, but I kind of know how white boys think because I went through it. They're your buddies until they're ready to play practical jokes, and you are usually the brunt or the butt of those jokes. So here's the thing, because I'm still trying to reconcile why Nolan left his phone with them. Because if he was going to see someone else and he told them that he was going to get a ride back with someone else, Nolan would not have left his cell phone on that boat. He would have had that cell phone in pocket. Look, I'm not a teenager, and my phone is everywhere I am. Everywhere. Teens are even worse. Their cell phones is like a second appendage. It's grown into their body. It's like the movie, the second version of Total Recall. They had all the electronic stuff wired into their bodies. This is how their cell phones are. So you can't tell me that Nolan left his cell phone to go visit and talk to another girl or somebody else. That dog ain't gonna hunt for me. But as I've thought about this, I'm trying to figure out, and we don't know the autopsy, and when his body was discovered the next morning, the guy who discovered it said that his body wasn't waterlogged, so he hadn't been in the water that long. Okay? From what I understand, this island has alligators. But according to what we've heard, there weren't any animal bites or anything. We'll know when the autopsy comes back. There's alleged that there was bruising on the body. We'll see how that works. But here's the problem here. Nolan leaves his cell phone on that boat. I'm pretty sure of that. We know that to be the case, according to what's been reported. what doesn't make sense to me is why it was left. And like I said, I'm just spitballing here. I think they played a practical joke on this kid, and it went awry. I think that's what happened. I think they teased him. They said, "We're leaving, Nolan. You better you're going to catch up. You better catch up. You got to catch the boat. Swim, Nolan, swim, swim, swim." Nolan was actually out there trying to swim to the boat, and he drowned. He got tired. I think that's what happened. Look, I don't know that to be true. And we won't know until we get these young people in court under oath. But what I do know is that they've tampered with evidence of a potential crime. And they should have been arrested. They have not been arrested as of yet. We know they tamper with evidence. Look, there's no doubt that they erased their cell phone data. There's no doubt about that. I have no compunction whatsoever to say, hey, maybe they did this. So y'all always want to give white folks the benefit of the doubt. But they erased their cell phone data. They erased Nolan's cell phone data. Even if we don't know who erased Nolan's cell phone data, we know they erased their own cell phone data. That sounds to me like it's potentially trying to cover up a crime. The kid in Dallas, let me read this again. A 19-year-old has been taken to jail accused of throwing out items and deleting messages in the wake of a teen's drowning. Hello? He went to jail because he tampered with evidence. These kids in Mississippi are still free, and they tampered with evidence. Let me ask you a question. If the shoe was on the other foot, how many of those black kids would be free today? How many of them would have already had an attorney by now? Something stinks to high heaven here, folks. If nothing else, there needs to be a warrant issued for their arrest. Yeah, and they need to, if they're going to get bond, they need to get bond. But there needs to be a warrant issued for their arrest because we know for a fact that they did tamper with evidence. We know that. Okay? So the question is, what's the problem? Well, the problem initially is Mississippi. I told y'all when I first moved to Atlanta years ago, and I hate Mississippi with a passion. I really do. I hate Mississippi. I'm going to be honest. And I know why, the history of its racism. I went to Mississippi once to do, let's say I went to Biloxi years ago. First time I had ever spent any time in Mississippi. And it was at the Biloxi Casino. Me and a friend went. And that was the only time that I've ever been to Biloxi. Anytime. Look, I hate Mississippi. When I first moved to Atlanta, I used to commute back. I was living in Memphis. And at the time, my fiance I wanted to move to Atlanta. She ultimately didn't want to move. But anyway, during the time that I was down there trying to make a living and build something for us, I would drive to Mississippi. I would drive to Atlanta. And I wouldn't go the way of going to Nashville and going I-40 and swinging around and going over the mountain. I would go through Mississippi. It was shorter. Okay. You would ultimately end up on I-20, and then you could drive north from I-20 from Birmingham, if I remember correctly, to Atlanta. But during the time that I would make those commutes, quite often it would be late night. I would leave at midnight and get to Memphis early that morning, or vice versa. Every now and then I would drive during the day, but here was the deal. I would never stop in Mississippi. I wouldn't even stop to take a leak. I would not buy gas in Mississippi. I would always, when I was getting, just before there was a little town, God, I can't think, it's been so long since I did that. But there was a little town, it wasn't Tuscaloosa, but that before we got into Mississippi, I'd always gas up right there. Sometimes I would be tired and couldn't make the drive, so I would pull over at a gas station and sleep, but it wouldn't be in Mississippi. I'm just saying that's just how ingrained the hatred for Mississippi is in me. Now, I'm not talking about all of its people. I've met some wonderful brothers and sisters from Mississippi. But Mississippi's history, I will say also that some of these brothers I've met from Mississippi, they got the Mississippi in them, for sure. But anyway, I say all that to say that this Nolan Wells case is peculiar at best. And we need to keep our eyes open, because this is becoming a pandemic around the country where black kids are ending up dead for nefarious reasons, and the police is only writing it off as a suicide or something that wasn't bad. In this day and time in America, I hate to say this, but there are some white people out there that I put nothing past them. We'll take a break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. UnjoinNetRadio.com.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us if you'd like to join the show. Again, I'm glad that Colin Kaepernick and Tyler Perry stepped up to help out the family of Nolan Wells. It kind of brought into focus again this thing with Jay-Z. You all knew that Jay-Z undermined Colin Kaepernick's movement back in the day, thinking that if he could get involved with the NFL that he would ultimately become an owner. He doesn't realize that that's a white boys club. They don't want you. You are nothing now to them except a glorified DJ. All right? That's all you are to them. But word has come out now that Roc Nation, that was ran by Jay-Z, actually undermined Colin Kaepernick's whole movement. Started sending text messages and so on and so forth to TMZ to try to color Colin Kaepernick as one way or the other. The irony is that there's nobody more despicable than Jay-Z and some of the people that he ran with. Yet here's a brother who was trying to do something positive for the community, and Jay-Z and his organization was undermining him with the hopes of becoming, at some point, an NFL owner. Now we understand his motivations, don't we? In other words, another black man selling out his own community for his own personal gain. When you get to that point, you're no better than white folks. And Jay-Z has proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I know a lot of you all don't want to accept that or believe that, but that is fact. Just like some of these other rappers. To the point now, I don't even want to listen to your music. I never really listened to it in the first place. But I certainly don't want to listen to it now after you have been prostituting black people. I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, one other note, we need to talk quickly about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is the NBA player that was recently traded from the Boston Celtics to the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, I am a 76er fan. And to end up with him, and from what I understand, LeBron James may be next. I've always been a LeBron James fan because of what he stood for with family and what he did in the community. I wasn't a Laker fan. I wasn't a Heat fan. I was a LeBron James fan, and I will always be a LeBron James fan unless there's something comes out that would make me otherwise. Okay? I believe in what he's done with his family, with his communities. So I'm proud of that. So now that he potentially may be going to the Philadelphia 76ers, it's fantastic because it's going to put two great minds together, LeBron and Jaylen. You see, Jaylen was the MVP of the NBA Finals. You know, y'all do realize that, right? Y'all realize that, right? Word is that many people that felt like Jaylen Brown was too smart. See, this is what they do to black people. They want you to be dumb and stupid. Jaylen Brown could be an astrophysicist. It reminds me of Myron Rolle. Y'all may not know that name, but Myron Rolle is the cousin of Samari Rolle. Samari played for the Tennessee Titans. All-Pro a few years back then. His cousin, Myron Rolle, got drafted by the Tennessee Titans. But Myron Rolle wanted to be a doctor. He went to Oxford. He ends up now, he's a neurosurgeon today. And in fact, he is counseling a lot of athletes about CTE. Okay? He was too smart to play football. And he moved on. So this hatred for Jaylen Brown, oh, the reason the Celtics moved on without him because he's just too smart. He was always the smartest guy in the room. Well, it doesn't take rocket science to be a basketball coach. In fact, it's not rocket science to play basketball. Maybe the reason Jaylen Brown was so good is because his mind could calculate the arc of the parabola when he shot the ball. And that's why he was always hitting them baskets. I don't know. But what I want to say to you about this particular situation is that if you've got a young black kid who is smarter than everybody else in the room, he should be celebrated. She should be celebrated. She should be lifted up as a beacon of hope. I celebrate my kids. I keep thinking back to that Donahue episode where the woman had these two kids who were, one was like 14 and was graduating college, and the other one was like 9 and could read on a college level. And they asked her, what did she do? She said, did you feed them brain food or whatever? She said, no, I just read to them every day. Part of the reason that I'm so learned is because I read. And part of the reason my kids are so successful is because I read to them and made them read. I guess this is a story about don't be afraid to be smart. You know, when I was in high school, I was in honors English in a lot of my classes. They were honors classes. My friends who played football with me, they were down the hall in regular English, and some of them were in remedial English, unfortunately for them. It's okay to be smart. It's okay. And I'm proud of Jaylen Brown, and I hope he continues on the path that he's on. Okay. Couple of things I want to talk about in this segment. One of them is politics, and we haven't touched on politics in a while because everything we do is political, but sometimes I just get a headache and I just don't want to deal with some of these bigots. You know, I think talking about our issues are more important than politics. If you didn't know, over the weekend, Lindsey Graham died. And I want to tell you, I'm not feeling sorry for Lindsey Graham. Okay? I'm just not. He was one of the most disgusting cancers that was on Capitol Hill. He supported the Gaza genocide. He bootlicked Trump, passed billions in dollars for war. He was a racist and bigot. He opposed equality and justice. He chose profit over people. He bombed children. That was in Iran, by the way. He took money from AIPAC. He enabled torture. He believed torture was good for our enemies. He attacked voting rights and betrayed his constituents. That was Lindsey Graham. That's one senator down. I'm not sitting here and trying to, I'm going to pray for his family. No, I'm not giving a damn about his family. Where are your hopes and prayers for Nolan Wells' family? What we know is Lindsey Graham was an opportunist. He was a white opportunist from South Carolina. Do I need to say anything else about South Carolina? Go read its history. I can't remember anything. I think he was in Congress as a senator for over 20 years. I can't remember anything Lindsey Graham ever did to help fight against racism and bigotry. I just can't. I'm sitting here and I can't. And then his colleague, and this is the most despicable thing that is going on, is Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell was found 3 weeks ago, if you hadn't heard, unconscious in his apartment in D.C. Lindsey was found in D.C. as well, so maybe there's something in the water. I don't know. But Mitch McConnell was issued CPR at the time. Now, I was reading a piece by a former EMT, and he says when you start performing CPR on a person, the odds of them coming back is very rare. This stuff that you see on TV is not true. You'll see these shows on TV where these hospital shows and someone goes into cardiac arrest and they perform CPR and they come back. This particular EMT who stated that he was an Army veteran and an EMT, he stated that rarely happens, and especially at certain ages. Mitch McConnell is 84 years old. He was found unconscious. They haven't said how long he was unconscious. But if he was found unconscious for an extended period of time, and they ended up having to perform CPR. I'm not a doctor, but Mitch McConnell was already dead or close to it. So then they rush him to the hospital. And nobody says anything about anything. Nobody's heard from him. And then you get the lies last week from some of his Republican operatives talking about, oh, I talked to him for 20 minutes. Well, if you talked to him for 20 minutes, why hasn't he released a personal statement about his condition? If he's well enough to talk 20 minutes, that means that he doesn't have a feeding tube in his mouth. He doesn't have a breathing tube in his mouth. He's just sitting up in the hospital. I'm just waiting to get out. I hate to say it. I could be wrong. But Mitch McConnell is probably dead too. And because he has a pulse, they're keeping him on life support. If you remove that life support, he's dead. And at the end of the day, he's 84 years old. He's dead. Now, here's the other thing. If I'm in the hospital and I'm the wife, I have power of attorney over everything that he does. Why did the wife leave 3 days later and fly to China? Y'all do know that Mitch McConnell, who was married to a Chinese immigrant, who was supporting a president who was trying to send immigrants out of the country. I tell you, these white folks just, their contradictions in life is just amazing to me. Why is that? Can y'all tell me? It makes no sense, does it? I know it doesn't. So I say all this to say that, see, there is something afloat that we need to be concerned about. With 2 senators gone, politics becomes very hairy. Here's why. You know the name Todd Blanche, right? Todd Blanche is the interim Attorney General. He has to be confirmed by the Senate in order for him to become the Attorney General. Todd Blanche is the former personal attorney for Donald Trump. Todd Blanche is the reason why the Epstein files have not been released. Pam Bundy even said that, as despicable as she was. She even said that it was Todd Blanche who kept the Epstein files from being completely released. So his confirmation hearing comes up next week. Or I should say this week. They need 51 senators to approve this nomination. All of a sudden, 2 of them are dead or half dead. And by the way, I hope they both took their gasoline draws, because that's going to provide them energy when they're running through hell. I'm telling you, I don't feel sorry for them. With many of these senators in swing states that are red states, but they're in swing races, or purple states as they call them, they're going to be apt to voting for Todd Blanche, who is the ultimate in cover-up for Donald J. Trump and the Epstein files, as more and more stuff comes out that he has been implicated in. Are y'all going to really do that? What about Susan Collins, who was in a race? Now, we know Graham Plattner has resigned, but still potentially she could lose that race. What about Murkowski in Alaska? This becomes really problematic for the Republican Party. And part of the reason that they don't want to declare Mitch McConnell dead is because the governor gets to appoint his replacement. But they also say that the governor has to put it up for a referendum. To show you how dirty the Republicans were in Kentucky, they knew Mitch was on his last few legs. So they passed a law in the state of Kentucky that the referendum for the new, to cover the new seat, had to be voted on by the people. It couldn't be appointed by the governor, as it is in most states around. I don't know of any other state that has that law except Kentucky. There may be others. But either way, there has to be a referendum. Now, here's the other thing, that from what I understand, that seat, that referendum has to be completed 3 months prior to the election. I could be wrong on that. Y'all can correct me, but that's what I understand as it relates to that seat in Kentucky. The seat in South Carolina, someone is going to be appointed to that seat. Like I said, Kentucky is the only one that came up with this. So basically, Republicans cheat when they know that they're going to lose. So Lindsey's dead. Mitch is dead. Two of the most despicable people that I've ever had the displeasure of knowing about in our political system. Donald Trump is the top of the list. Him and Andrew Jackson. And it just so happens that he loves him some Andrew Jackson. Ain't that something? So, my point is this. Is hell hath no fury than a political storm. And again, I'm not laughing at someone's death. Both of those were old men. Look, I'm 65 myself. I could be gone at any day as well. So, goodbye and good riddance. When we come back, it's what we must do.
When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world. Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics, and who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We got a lot of things left to talk about. We're at the segment where it's my favorite, What We Must Do. Before we talk about that, I want to remind people about Chanbear Media and consultants. We have put together an organization that will help you with your social media as well as your podcast. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm going to be on a couple of podcasts later on this afternoon, but I've been on a lot of podcasts, and the news that black people get is being sent through a lot of podcasts and social media, and that's great. What I'd like for you to be able to do is make sure that when you're listening to these podcasts, that you are getting the right information. All right? In other words, fact check, double check, fact check. I fact checked a friend's not his podcast, but a post that he put on social media about a week ago, and he because it just sounded too weird. And I posted to him, I said, this is not correct. And he responded, thank you very much for fact checking me. Okay? That's what we've got to do. But more importantly, we want to put out a good product too. And that means do your research. You heard me reading from stories about various things. The stuff that I talked about, Nolan Wells, is from the news. We have to make sure that we are disseminating the correct information. And because so many of our black radio stations have been commandeered by white profiteers, you can't depend on that news. And many of those stations are not even providing news anymore. They are simply playing this gutter music. So if you want to do a podcast and you need help putting it together, you heard me talk about scripts. I've got a script here. Okay, I do scripts on all my shows. Let me help you with that. Let me help you with that. You might be an aspiring artist, or an aspiring a writer, and you need to figure out how to get your book out to Amazon. I now have 2 books on Amazon. Doesn't really matter about the genre. It's just a matter of how do you format your book to get it on Amazon. How do you get a book cover that will be accepted? Last week I spent like a day on my second book making sure every time I'd upload my cover, they would reject it. And I went back and forth. And fortunately for me, I do Photoshop. I have Photoshop, so I could correct it myself. A lot of y'all can't do that. So I'm telling you that I'm willing to help you. I will tell you also that I will edit your book and get it on Audible for $600. That means I'm going to do the narration and will help you with getting the book cover and will help you getting it uploaded to Autograph with to Audible with all the necessary specs. You just can't talk in a phone and think that and record and think it's gonna be ready for Audible. There are certain parameters that you have to go through. I'll help you with all of that. That's Chanbear Media Consultants. We got a lot of other things that we can do for you to help you get your face in the place. So give me a call at 615-554-0568 and we'll hook you up. All right. So this is what we must do. And we talk about a lot of things on these shows and we never give marching orders. I like to give you marching orders. And it's more or less about how we spend our money. You know, the Asian boycott apparently is working. The one thing I know about black people, when you piss black people off, they ain't coming back. You have 1 or 2 of them, I don't care what y'all say, I'm going to get my nails done. But I've been seeing posts on social media where these black salons are packed to the brim now. Okay? I've also been seeing similar posts on the web where these white Asian salons are terrible. They're losing money. I saw a post yesterday where the Asian man was literally crying. He owns a restaurant. And he said that they usually are packed out at lunchtime. He only getting 3 or 4 customers in this black neighborhood. Oh, yeah. You know, I told y'all the story about the Arabs that moved in when I was living in Nashville, moved into the store down the street and didn't want to help after the flood back in 2010 until I threatened them. All I'm saying to you guys is we got to start paying attention. Our money is our refuge. And many of them don't care. They just don't care. They just want to come into our communities, take our monies, and then they want to talk mess behind our backs. Latinos are upset too, because all of a sudden black folks ain't taking y'all mess either. Who said that the boycott wouldn't work? Who said that? We got prima facie evidence, folks, that it does work. I've been providing it for years. Y'all don't want to listen to me. You know, like I said last week, that I been talking about boycotting the SEC for years. In fact, a post that came up, this popped up in my memory on Facebook from 10 years ago, me talking about that very thing. My book, as a matter of fact, Blue Chip Down, is about a black athlete who's going to boycott the SEC and not take his scholarship. Hello? What I'm saying to you is that the money that we spend supports everybody but our people. Do you hear what I said? It is calculated now at $2.1 trillion annually. Okay? That's our buying power. That's more than the gross national product of Canada, more than the 9th largest nation in the world. Yet less than 10% of that money goes to black businesses. Okay? Think about this. If we supported our community, these young black brothers that are on the street could have mentors, because now they can go to ABC Black Company, and ABC Black Company is going to hire him or her. You see, part of the reason that nepotism exists is because these white men have always hired their brothers, their sons, their daughters, their friend's son. Young boy comes of age, needs a job. Hey Bob, you know, Jeremy needs a job. You know, he's of age. Do you got anything over there you can do for him? Yeah, it ain't got to be anything fancy. I just wanna get him in the job market. Oh yeah, yeah, I got something for you. Send him on over here. I'll take care of him. It's always been that way. How many of you all have ever got a job through a friend? You knew somebody who worked at that particular organization. You told them to put in a good word for you. Boom, you ended up getting hired. That has happened to me. So my point is that if we have a business, we have businesses that is generating $2.1 trillion in buying power, and half of that, just think if $1 trillion of those dollars came into the black community, think about how we could build our communities. Think about how we could build our own schools. Because if we take that money out of their economy and put it in our economy, we would be much better off. I said this over and over again. The Red Summer was because of economics, black economics, or I should say black economic power. Because these towns were burned to the ground and raided because of black people keeping their money in their own communities. Maybe there is a subconscious fear about the Red Summer that is keeping black people from shopping with black people. But that was over, a century ago. In the 1920s. We should be over that fear. Is it ingrained in our DNA or something that we shouldn't be shopping with black people? I don't know. But what I do know is keeping your money within your own community will keep things from happening, like with Nolan Wells. Maybe if Nolan Wells felt comfortable, he wouldn't have been out there with those white boys, and he would have been at a black college, in a black community, where people are uplifting him as opposed to trying to harm him. Now, I'm not saying that nefarious things don't go on black college campuses. They do. But I would rather be among my people who are moving in a positive direction as opposed to being among people who you really don't know what their underlying agendas may be. So we've got to start making it fashionable that you're supporting a black business. I'm an author. I'm a black author. Please buy my book. Don't buy it because I'm black. Buy it because it's a good book. And if you don't like fiction, I've got a nonfiction book. Grants and Federal Assistance Made Easy. Don't buy it because I'm black. Buy it because it's going to help you. And then feel good about the fact that you bought something with a black business. That's how you keep us all in business. And ultimately what you can end up doing, look, one of the things I love about Joinet Radio is it's black owned and operated. And I took sincere pleasure that when we would get young black interns to come down and intern for 5-6 weeks, I tried to teach them everything I knew. It was an honor and a pleasure to help those young black folks. And what I'm saying to you guys now more than ever is that you got to do the same. And it starts with your dollars. It starts with your dollars. There should be a black grocery store in literally every black neighborhood in this country, not owned by Malone and Hyde or whomever else. It should be a black grocery store that competes with Kroger's, competes with Safeway, competes with Weis and Giant or whatever food market chain that you have in your area. There should be a black-owned store somewhere that's in that vicinity where black people can go and know that their money is going to a black business owner. And that black business owner should be hiring black kids. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't hire white kids. But you should focus on hiring young black people who you can keep them off the street. I saw a story just the other day. 14-year-old kid, his mother was the manager of a Burger King. He's 14 years old. He goes out and he gets all of his friends jobs at that Burger King. It was 3 others. Burger King fired him, fired her. Wait a minute. Here's a black mother who had a 14-year-old kid who was working at Burger King, and I'm assuming that it was legal. He goes out and he gets his other friends and gets them hired on at Burger King, which is great, because guess what? They said, we did this because we wanted to stay off the street. And then the Burger King franchise fired the mother? You understand this, right? I say this all the time. When I would travel around and do my teenage survival kit, here's the one thing that I learned about young black people, especially the black males. They don't want to be in those gangs. Let me say that again. They don't want to be in those gangs. A lot of them were in gangs because of necessity. The gang helped them eat. The gang helped to protect them from rivals. We could do all of that. Why don't we become a financial gang? Because if we did, we could save a whole lot of our children. And on that note, that's what we must do. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Dynamic Dave. I'm here every Monday. I will tell you also, we are in the works of putting together a different show which will bring my former co-host back, Robert Webb. We will give you more information over the next couple of weeks about that. So y'all stay tuned for that. Also, if you are looking for someone to be on your podcast, let me know. Okay? Let me know. And I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. We'll talk about The Pain of Vengeance, Blue Chip Down, and Grants and Federal Assistance Made Easy, and the impetus behind those, because there is a story behind those novels. They just didn't come off my head. Okay? Good talking to you. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.